Last week, I put Lee Priest, one of the most notorious giant killers, against a monstrous challenge. That being Big Ramy's 2015 Arnold Brazil package. I won't spoil that video, but I think the outcome is obvious if we have to send another lamb to the slaughter. But maybe this video's outcome will be different. Last time I took the giant versus giant killer approach. Today, it's freak versus freak. A freak off. Maybe the only way to beat one of the biggest bodybuilders ever is another freak. So enter Roelly Winklaar. Now we've established the version of Ramy we'll be using today. Nothing will change from the last Big Ramy video, but for Roelly, I wanted to do something a little unorthodox. When people think Roelly Winklaar, they immediately think of his breakout Olympia appearance from the 2018 Mr. Olympia. And that's of course a fantastic version, but I want to go a little outside the box. We're still going to use a show from the same year, but one that Roelly actually won, and beat a ton of great guys to achieve that. We'll be using his 2018 Arnold Classic Australia version. Truth be told, this could actually be his best version. It's right there with his 2018 Olympia version, just talked about less. Anyway, with the versions picked and the stage set, let's start this freak off and see if yet another challenger falls to Ramy, or if Roelly Winklaar can prevail. Remember, if you guys like these types of videos, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. These titans start this comparison off with a major clash. Roelly is a fan favorite in this front double, but Ramy is just a monster in every shot. Now, although fans love Roelly in this shot, I do too, I've shed my share of white tears to this pose, that love doesn't always translate to a win. The upper half of the pose starts out giving Ramy a decent run for his money. Roelly has a small waist, wide lats, and I really like that tilt he rocks on this pose too, and of course he caps this pose off with some of the best guns ever. The problem for Roelly, or anyone for that matter, is that Ramy is a mass monster with proportions that are still really aesthetic. His waist is small. I mean, it's not the smallest, but he's so wide through the shoulders and lats that the waist looks very tight by comparison. He even has more lats than Roelly showing in the shot, and take a look at the arms. Ramy is just as big in terms of overall size of the arm. I'd actually give him the biceps on this pose, but Roelly has the better triceps and forearms. So I mean, even in Roelly's trademark, Ramy is definitely pushing him, if not winning. It was the same in the Lee Priest comparison, even though he has some great guns too. But let's turn our attention now to the lower bodies. Let's turn our attention to the lower bodies now, but let's still divert our eyes from the third legs, even though this is a freak off. Anyway, for the actual wheels, this is quite the win for Ramy. And notice, no holes, no dents, no oil, none of the problems he had when he left the stage. Here he schools Roelly in size and even separation, despite this version of Ramy not being the most conditioned overall. Now remember, Ramy not only has these monstrous legs and hog, but crazy upper body shape too, even better than Roelly's. So when you add these great legs in that upper half, you get one of the most devastating X-frames ever. Honestly, probably the most. At least the most exaggerated. I'm tired of tiptoeing around my love of prime Ramy. Roelly's shape is fantastic, but he still gets eclipsed by Ramy, and Ramy's arguably taking his lunch money in the arms too. Now we are using the same system as always. In my comparisons, a different amount of points go to the winner of the pose depending on the margin of victory. 2 points for small wins, 3 points for solid wins, and 4 points for blowouts. I think the top to bottom wins for Ramy warrants a 3-point win, but things were going really well for Roelly until we went downstairs. And I know a lot of people love this shot, and I do see the appeal. Let's stick Ramy with just 2 points to start this comparison out. Roelly is a beast, pun not intended, but it's not enough. I said something perhaps a little crazy in the last Big Ramy vid, but I'll double down here because I'm firm on this. Prime Ramy has the best front lat spread ever. That's probably not this version specifically, maybe something just a little bit later in his career, but for Roelly, he might as well be going against the best front lat spread ever because he's flailing here. The legs are obvious once again. Even in the upper limbs, the arms and delts probably go to Ramy or are a tie at best. I suppose Roelly could win the chest because he's a bit more detailed, but Ramy has those milkers while Roelly is a lot flatter. And then the main bulk of the pose, the torso, easily goes to Ramrod. Crazy width in the shoulders and a small waist and huge lats. Roelly has some lats, the lighting and the shadows being cast don't help, but we know this won't be holding a candle to Ramy even with the best lighting. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, it's just not posing a challenge to Ramy. The pose itself is not that good though. Roelly is rotating his shoulders forward for no reason. It robs him of some of that width and lat exposure, and he desperately needed all that he could muster here. Anyway, I think the only real discussion to be had here is the debate between 4 or 3 points for this. It's certainly not 2 points. Roelly has lost the edge and appeal that he had in the front double. But you know, I don't hate his front lat spread pose. I think it would be a lot better off if it was not next to Big Ramy. And in my comparisons, if you have something in the shot, you won't get swept. So with that said, I think Roelly does just enough to not give Ramy 4 points, but this is still a very solid victory for Ramy. Now this is where we should really start seeing the differences between how well Lee did and how well Roelly will do. Giant killers typically don't have the size, frames, nor thickness to hold up well from the side poses. However, Roelly is well equipped for this shot. He is a little less equipped in the side leg though, but I actually don't think that's his fault. He just happens to be next to the best side leg of all time. Roelly is good, he has a decent amount of size and separation between quad and ham, but he is slightly soggy in the glute. Ramy of course is a lot bigger and is fully separated and showcases lines all the way from the knee to the glutes. But enough about that because the upstairs is a lot more comparable on these two. I hate to say it though, but I have to. Ramy is just too much from the side even compared to Roelly Winklaar of all people. And since the detail level on these two is similar, the size is what's going to matter the most as the main differentiating factor. I suppose Roelly can take the arm and delt, again that is his trademark area, but just on sheer size, Ramy can really trivialize that win. In the arm and delt he's just as big, not in the tricep though, but Roelly has the best triceps ever, so that's to be expected. But the delt is more detailed and the bicep and forearm have good size as well. But then in the centerpiece of the pose, the pecs, I have Ramy. Again, the detail is pretty much the same between the two, but Ramy is just a bit bigger. It is pretty close though. And you can't forget about Ramy's wins in overall size and width. That would really help on a real stage, he just takes up so much space. So what we have is a smaller win up top and a convincing win downstairs, both of those being for Big Ramy. So that leaves me a bit conflicted on the margin. On one hand, Roelly looks really good but still gets beat top to bottom. I'd really need to see just how big Big Ramy is next to Roelly, because I think that could really cement the other aspects that Ramy has going for him if he is that much bigger than Roelly. Thankfully, we do have a little something to go off of. Here are the two gentlemen side by side at the 2016 Olympia. I'm not really too concerned with the details here. I'm just bringing this pose up so we can see how big Big Ramy is next to Roelly. Now initially I was right in between margins. It's either a strong 2-point win or a soft 3. But after seeing how big Big Ramy looks, I've decided to go with the upper limit on this pose. Big Ramy is big. Shocking, I know. But remember, he wasn't just winning because he was big. He had wins in the chest and the side leg on top of being much bigger and wider overall. That's why I'm going to go with a soft 3 here, which is very unfortunate news for Roelly's chances. Now this is a revealing pose. Roelly is ass in the rear double, and that's in comparison to Big Ramy, who at the time had a pretty mediocre pose himself. But Ramy is still ahead here. Roelly has those fantastic arms and delts, but that's really it. His lats are very high, leaving a non-existent lower back, and the upper back isn't thick nor detailed either. And that lower half is quite soft, but okay, so is Ramy's. But Roelly's legs from the rear are a major letdown development-wise too. The quad sweeps are poor, the hamstrings aren't that thick, and he has a big thigh gap as well. Ramy's lower half, again while the condition is poor, is at least there. Roelly is walking on stilts. Ramy's top and bottom portions of this pose actually match, and he has the better X-frame for the shot as well. In the back, it's nothing to write home about for Ramy, but with the better insertions and just more mass, I can and will give him the pose over Roelly. Ramy even has decent arms and delts, so even in Roelly's best area, Ramy has some good opposition there. He just has a more filled in and filled out pose overall. Roelly has some major gaps, so I think Ramy is a pretty firm winner here, but that doesn't mean the margin is big. I'm giving Ramy the shot, but again, it is a mediocre pose, so I don't think anything more than 2 points is warranted here. Now again, Roelly should have the advantage on paper here over someone like Lee Priest. Roelly's structure and therefore back is a lot wider, and it should lend itself better to this shot. In fact, Roelly's back is a lot better from the last shot, but Ramy's back gets a bit better also. I'll admit it though, back to back, I narrowly have Roelly here. He has good taper, the width is good too, especially for who he's standing next to, and the back looks thicker and overall tighter. But of course, Ramy's back is immense. He's still wider than Roelly, but I think Roelly is just wide enough to barely win off the back of, pun not intended, other things he has going for himself. We have a whole other half of the pose to look at though, don't forget, although I imagine Roelly would like us to, because yet again, this is a blowout. His legs are just skinny, quite frankly. They don't match his back and his condition sucks. This pose is severely top heavy. Yes, Ramy's condition still sucks, but his legs are clearly more developed and actually fit his top half. So yeah, he's gonna win this pose for pretty much the same reason that he won the last one. Roelly does have a slightly better back here though, so we'll keep it at 2 points. Now we're finishing up on the last side pose. You guys are surely going to have some hate for this one, but look, Roelly does have the best triceps ever, but as a pose, what the hell is this? It was never actually that strong of a pose for him outside of the tricep itself, but towards the later years of his career, he didn't even bother with the actual execution anymore. Ramy's pose as a pose itself is obviously much better, and it's not just the execution he wins. He wins the side leg again, his midsection is also more locked in, and he has the added advantages of being wider and bigger. Roelly has a win of the pecs though. They're really thick all the way way into the front delt tie-in, and of course he wins the arm. The sheer width on the delt is crazy, and yes, of course he wins the tricep. Is Ramy's arm bad though? No, far from it. He has a ton of size and is actually more detailed in the delt. On paper, I think we know who should be winning this, but against my better judgment, I'm going to make a call that comes straight from my perspective just as a fan. This isn't an objective analyst call, but one from the casual hell yeah point of view. I'll give Roelly a small win here, pretty much just off the sheer impressiveness and those triceps. Again, not objective, but I think we can all recall how we first felt when we saw Roelly's tricep. I had a similar reaction when I saw San Marias. Next we have the abs and thighs. Now I need to know where my bait bros are because it's time to do some rage baiting. I mean, not really though, but I'm sure a lot of you will be a little too dumb to understand this call and comment that I'm rage baiting anyway. With that being said, I do think this is legitimately the closest pose we've had in this matchup. But at this point in the comparison, I think you know what I'm going to say. Let's start with the thighs portion of the pose. Ramy crushes Roelly on size and detail, and look at that feathering. We can turn our attention upstairs now where we have a good change of pace. Here I actually have Roelly narrowly. I think the abs are a bit more bubbly and the separation a bit deeper, but really the most appealing part of the upper half is the waistline. Ramy holds up pretty well though for how big he is. The abs aren't bad either. They're really not that far behind Roelly's. So what do you think my conclusion is going to be on this one? Ramy holds up a lot better in the abs than Roelly does in the legs. Ergo, Ramy has the better pose because of the two main elements of the shot are better on average. I suppose you can make the argument that Roelly's legs are decent so he can win the shot just barely on the better abs. If Roelly won here, I'd be fine with it. 2 points either way though. I'm just erring on the side of Ramy because it's the abs and thighs, and Ramy has the better showing top to bottom. What a great end we have to this matchup. These guys are simply iconic in the most muscular pose. But while Roelly is a fan favorite, I think Big Ramy may just be too much. Now, why is Roelly such a fan favorite? It's those crazy arms and delts, and they are insane. They're round, thick, detailed. They beat Ramy's upper limbs, but after we take those out of the equation, what does Roelly really have going for him? Well, nothing Ramy can't beat him in. Roelly's opting for the crab variation of the pose here, downplaying the legs in midsection, but I think they'd go to Ramy anyway. At least the legs, that's for certain, but Ramy's also good in the abs too. Ramy has the better chest as well. He's thicker in the shot and more detailed. And perhaps most importantly, he's at least holding up in the arms and delts. Let me be clear again, Roelly is winning. But Ramy has very thick arms and very big capped off delts. And of course, this will hopefully be the final time I say this, but Ramy is bigger and wider, and the most muscular is where that counts the most, so those wins can't be understated. With all that said, I do probably like Roelly's pose more. Again, it's iconic, but today, against this opponent, it doesn't constitute to a win. This is close, truthfully, but body part for body part, Ramy has the better pose. We have to keep it very close though because Roelly is just so damn impressive. Next, we have the second round of judging for the 4 overall physique categories, which are shape, condition, muscularity, and flaws. Let's start with the most simple one, muscularity. Obviously, Ramy is getting a win. Now, Lee lost this category by the full 4 points, and I don't think I should be so heavy-handed here. And I don't think I need to. Roelly is really muscular in a lot of areas. However, I'm still thinking about making this a 3-point win because the legs were quite a big gap for him, especially from the rear, and his back was even weaker than Ramy's in a pose, which is not a good spot to be in at all. I could definitely make it a 3-point win with those things in mind, but I'll focus on the more beefy aspects of Roelly, if you will, and just make it a 2-pointer for Ramy. Next, let's go to shape so we can keep this round close, because I am in fact giving the win to Roelly here. Now for me personally, I think Ramy should be taking this category, but I know that won't be the most popular choice, so maybe that means it's more objective, but I kind of think a tie would be the most objective choice. But anyway, for bodybuilding, I think Ramy truly does have the better shape. Not aesthetics per se, but the crazy proportions on him, that X-frame, they just can't be touched. Not even by Roelly. Roelly has the better flow maybe and the smaller waist, so he's more aesthetic in the true sense of the word, and that's why he's winning the category, but Ramy's proportions are just jaw-dropping, so he could definitely win here too. But anyway, next we have condition. On this one, I just decided to call it a tie. My initial hunch was Roelly by the narrowest of margins, but the more I thought about it, the less I was sure. I honestly think it could be as trivial as the better photo quality helping him just a bit more. I mean, there weren't any big swings here I can point to and say that one guy is definitely more conditioned than the other. Ramy was better in the legs, Roelly better in the abs. We can go back and forth. I think Roelly's maybe a bit drier overall, but again, that's a small enough difference that I'm not confident to call it concretely since they're not side by side and under the same lighting. That leaves us with our final category, flaws, and I'm just going to leave this one blank too. Certainly, these aren't flawless physiques, but like the previous category, I don't see big swings here, so I don't think we need to call it for anyone. And now it's time to reveal the final scores. But first, a little review. Now the whole reason I did this matchup was because Giant Killer Lee Priest was no match for Big Ramy. The whole idea of this particular comparison was to compare one mass monster to another. Maybe a more level playing field would help. But that just wasn't the case. Ramy won the last matchup 74-26, and today he actually took a slightly larger win. Big Ramy won today's comparison with 76.1 points to Roelly's 23.9 points. Now yes, Roelly technically did 2 points worse, but I think we could simply just say that's statistical noise. A 2-point difference and a 50-point win isn't really that much. But on the other hand, I do think I have a potential explanation for this. And no, I don't think Roelly would be doing worse than Lee when taking Big Ramy on. 1v1, maybe Lee would do better. 1v1 matchups are obviously what these comparison videos are built on. I do 1v1 comparisons, so if it came down to that, I think maybe because Lee is so different from Ramy, it could actually help him. Again, only in a 1v1 scenario. However, in a full lineup of 3, 4, maybe even 6 guys, Roelly would definitely be more equipped to not only stand out in that lineup, but next to Big Ramy in that same lineup. Lee takes the risk of getting lost in a full lineup, especially if it's made up of competitors of Roelly and Ramy statures. So overall on this point, I'd say they pretty much do the same against Big Ramy 1v1. That extra 2 points Lee got probably doesn't mean much. However, if we did expand this to a real lineup, it stands to reason that Roelly would do a lot better than Lee, since Roelly has a bigger structure, more muscle, and still similar condition. And I guess that's what really matters, a real lineup that is, because that's closer to how bodybuilding really happens. I don't think two-man callouts are as common. But regardless of who does better, I mean, it barely matters. Lee and Roelly both got their asses handed to them. But since Roelly technically did worse 1v1, I have some explaining to do on his end. Now, if you watched the last video, you may recall something I said towards the end of it. I said something along the lines of Ramy beats pretty much anyone with mid condition, because if condition is taken out of the equation, then Ramy can just win on what's left: structure, size, and even shape. Well, Roelly's condition wasn't that good. It's debatable if it was better than Ramy's at all. And as good as Roelly's muscularity and structure are, Ramy beats him and like 99% of other people in those aspects. He's just one of the biggest and widest bodybuilders ever. And sure, Roelly won the shape category, but that was honestly off of pity for me. I think people might prefer Roelly's flow, but in terms of the pure X-frame proportions, Ramy takes it for sure. That's why this win was so big. Condition in this matchup pretty much canceled out, and Ramy's almost unbeatable in the other things. That's why there was a massive 50-point win for him in this matchup. Now at this point, after 2 matchups with this version of Big Ramy, you may be asking, what beats it? Well, it's going to take someone that's in a lot better condition. That takes care of Ramy's main weakness, but that competitor is still going to need to compare somewhat decently to Ramy's insane muscularity and or structure. They're going to need to be very complete and probably have a good back too to fill in that other weakness that Ramy has. So after that long list, when you really get down to it, there just aren't that many people that can beat prime Big Ramy, even including this version, which is pretty much at the start of his prime or just slightly before it in my opinion. And I mean, imagine if you took this package we used today from the 2015 Arnold Brazil and actually gave him good condition. You'd be even more hard-pressed to find someone to stand next to this and not get completely blown out, much less win. I mean, he went to the Olympia that year in 2015 with a slightly worse version than this in my estimation and only got beat by 4 guys, 3 of which are Mr. Olympias. And the other one was Dennis Wolf, who's pretty much specially equipped to take Big Ramy on with that super wide structure, great muscularity, and good condition for this year at least. But anyway, Roelly Winklaar was a great bodybuilder, but he's one of those mass monsters with not the best condition, and he simply lost the slugfest in the mass and structure categories. He may be a good bodybuilder, but Ramy, after the more I look and the more comparisons I do, I'm left thinking that he's a truly great and underrated bodybuilder. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. What did you guys think of this matchup, and who do you think would do better against Big Ramy? Roelly Winklaar or Lee Priest? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you guys like this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. And if you guys want to get your hands on some high quality supplements while supporting my channel even further, head over to Arms Race Nutrition. Then at checkout, use my code Project10 to get 10% off your entire order. That's code Project10, armsracenutrition.com. And finally, with all that said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Get Alexia.